Okay, if you haven't already, you can go ahead and close out those files that we were just working with. And then in Bridge, we're going to go and look at our Lesson 6 files. We have an endpoint, and we have a starting point. So we're going to create this from this eventually. Go ahead and open the Start 06 PSD file. And we're going to work with masking and channels. So getting things off of a background in a good, realistic way has been kind of hard, I would suspect, based on what you've done so far. You've used the selection tools and the marching ants and the pen, whatever. You've been trying to select things. And that works, and it can be perfectly easy and quick and the right way to do things, or you might want to use this masking option, which I'm going to show you today. So here's a picture of a girl, obviously taken on like a white background with a pretty harsh splash. So there's a lot going on. And because she's not on a perfect white background, we couldn't just use like the magic wand tool to select the white and wipe that out. So that's not going to work. So we need to think of some other options. Notice that in our layers panel, we have two different layers. There's this funky digitized background, and then there's her picture on top of that. We're going to make some masking, and the thing that you need to know when you're working with masks is that we actually, on a separate layer, we paint with either black or white, or shades in between gray. So when we're doing that, black hides, so whatever we paint with black gets hidden. Whatever stays white is revealed. If we start using shades of gray, we're basically painting in transparency, where we can see something a little bit, but not completely. So black hides, white reveals. All right, let's name this right away. Do a file, save as, and give it your name, and then girl in the Lesson 6 folder. We're going to be creating a magazine cover from this. The first thing that we're going to do to get her off of this background, I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger. I'm also going to close my character panel that's floating from our last time, just so my workspace is a bit cleaner. We're going to use a workspace that's called Select and Mask, and it's going to allow us to pick an image and then mask out what we don't want and keep what we do. So we're going to do that with, in our layers panel, make sure that both layers are visible, even though we can't see the background layer. The eyeball is still there with it. And then we're going to get into that special feature. So we're going to go up to the Select menu, and we're going to choose Select and Mask. All right, that brought up a property panel over on the right-hand side, and it very clearly changed what we're looking at. This first view that we're looking at is the semi-transparent onion skin view, where we can see our picture with and see through what's underneath it. If you go over to the View drop-down box over here on the right, we can see that onion skin is the one that's there. Marching ants, overlay, on black, on white, black and white, and on layers. So right now, nothing has been masked out. When we look at this view on layers, all we're seeing is that background layer. So the entire girl layer is hidden. It's masked over. Go to the overlay, the red one. And then up in your option bar, you have some words up here. There's a button right here that says Select Subject. Click on that. And Photoshop, which is creepy smart, did a really good job of selecting the subject. In this view that I'm in, I'm seeing everything that's red is being masked out, so that white background that she's on is being hidden, and she is staying visible. I can look at different views to see how this looks. Here's what our mask actually looks like. Black hides, white shows. Here's what it looks like on layers. Not bad, right? For one click, it sure beats what I was teaching you last week. but I had to. But look at her hairline. Do you see where it's kind of choppy and not perfect? Do you see at the back of her neck where her hair has some visibility? Like the white background is still showing. We would expect to be able to see through to yellow or orange background here. So it looks kind of fake. But you know what? It is an awesome first starting point. It's amazingly powerful. All right, let's go back to the overlay, that red mode. This is kind of easy for us to see where her hair is not so good. So look at these two pieces hanging down from her bun. I can see in mine that there's parts that are red, meaning it's going to get chopped off. I know there's hair there, but it's getting chopped off. I also see that my mask is perfectly visible, meaning I can see all the way through her hair to the white background, where it should have some transparency instead. All right, we're going to add some of the areas that were missed or left out first using the quick selection tool within this family. So if we look over at our left toolbar, we see that it's different. We have at the top the quick selection tool. I'm not getting my tooltips to show up. Come on. All right, I guess it's going to be difficult. We're going to choose that top one, the quick selection tool. The size of it, we're going to tell it to be 15. And again, when you move it over into your document, you actually see the size of it. So if you needed to make it smaller or bigger, you can fix it there. Let's zoom down first using the Command plus and look down at the bottom right in here. I can see a lot of her shirt is covered up by red, meaning it's going to be masked out right here, and that's not what I want. So in this area, I want to add to my selection. So I'm going to drag this quick selection tool in areas where it missed, and I'm going to try to get those not red. So in areas where you can see that the selection isn't right, use this tool and drive over, but don't worry about her hair yet. Just do this front of her shirt. And from the view that I'm in, I want to switch to the mask itself, and I want to show you what it did. Do you see how in the onion, look at mine in the overlay, I went too far and I painted the mask out here where it shouldn't be, so I have this gray corner. If I look at it in the black and white mask, I see what I did. So you can take away from that by holding down the Option key, and then you get the minus sign. And then you can paint back the black part that should have been there. You can tell that you went too far with your selection. So in the overlay view, you can do that, in the black and white view, but just fix up those areas first where we missed. If you get too far out, if you paint in areas that still should be red, remember, just hold down the Option key and get the subtraction and subtract from your selection. Then I'm going to zoom out so I can see the whole image again. And I want to go look at this on the layers to see how it's really going to look. So switch your view menu to be on layers. That looks much better down here. But we can see where we have some issues with her hair. Again, all of this loose hair up here that's in red, when I go look at it on layers, it's actually gone, it's chopped off. And then in this area where it should be transparent, I'm not seeing that. Let's zoom in to 300% or more and use the hand tool or hold down the space bar to get the hand tool so that we can see the messy bun part of her hair. The next one that we're going to choose is the second tool down in the toolbar on the left. That's your Refine Edge Brush. Click on that and bring your cursor over, and again you're going to see the size of your brush, and you can make it bigger or smaller depending on what you need. Up in our option bar, we're going to change it to have a size of 20 pixels. So
switch back to the layer.
Oh, you accepted the change before we got too far. Can you undo or go back a few steps in your history? Go under Window, History. Window, History. and then back up a couple steps so you're not that far in. You might have to jump in where we are. You accepted the mask and went a step too far, so that's why it was at that point. All right, so a size of 20 and a hardness of 100%, meaning it has a hard edge brush. We're going to go back to the overlay view, that red view, so we can see the hair below. And we're going to take this refine edge tool and we're going to paint where we see her hair to start to get that to come back. So we're refining the edges here, saying, yeah, this really should have been part of it. So wherever you see pieces of hair that really should have been included, paint along the edges of her hairline. You don't necessarily need to worry about all this real messy hair right here, but these pieces that hang down you definitely want to look at. We're also going to want to go down towards the back of her neck and paint in here to get our transparency so that we can see the hairs, but we can also see through them to the background. So use this tool and paint around her hair wherever you see issues. The other thing that you can do to tweak how this works is over at the far right-hand side, we have edge detection and a radius area. We can turn on our smart radius checkbox right here, and then we can start pulling the slider out to the right, and it's going to make our selections better. It's going to understand that when we're painting over some of this hair, it's going to understand the radius is going to be determined based on what it's seeing. So if I paint over some of these real straggly hairs, they're definitely coming back, which may or may not be what you want, but I'm going to paint them in. So this is the different levels of transparency. If you want to look at this on black and white, this is what your layer actually looks like, your mask. Black hides, white shows. Grays do in between. So we have a hard edge from her chin to what's not her chin. We want that to be a hard edge of black to white. But where her hair is back here, we're happier having this soft, transparent radius. It's white where it needs to be, but it's shades of gray where it doesn't need to be so dramatic. So a hard edge is good on things that should be hard edges. This softer edge is best for around the hair. All right. Let's look at this on layers so we can see what it's going to look like on this new background. And we're going to go down to the global refinement section on the right. If you need to twirl it open, go ahead and do that. What's best here depends on the selection that you've already made. So these are not numbers that are true for every image or every time. So we're just going to go through here and we're going to play with these sliders to see how they behave. The smooth slider, as you take it over to high numbers, do you notice how it's really smoothing out these flyaway hairs of hers? So maybe a lower number of, they used 5. It's a little smooth, but not too much. Contrast right now is at 0. We're going to bump that up to 20% to make the transitions along the selection border more abrupt. So contrast, we're going to pump up to 20%. And then shift edge, we're going to take it to a negative 15%. So we're going to pull that down. That moves the selection border inward, so it helps to remove any unwanted background edges. So where we see that, where we will see that, is going to be around her chin. So shift edge. Do you guys see it if you make the shift edge really dramatic? With, play with it in extremes to see what it's doing. It's very obvious. If I have it way over here at 96%, do you see around her chin how the edge has been pushed outward of our selection? Whereas if we bring it in, we kind of start to lose those it gets a little bit sharper. So negative 15%-ish on that. All right, next we need to look at this panel on the right. There's output settings right at the very bottom, and it has a disclosure triangle, so twirl that open. We want to be zoomed into at least 200%. I'm at 400. You want to be able to see her chin around her face. And under the output settings, there's an option to decontaminate colors. I want you to click on that and watch her chin. The amount that you want to decontaminate, we're going to pull back to 25%. This is super helpful if you ever shoot a picture on a green screen, which we will do in digital photography next semester. A lot of times, especially with the lighting like we have in here, it kind of puts a green cast on people. And when you select them off of that background, there's still some fringe pixels around the edge that are green. By clicking on this decontaminate, it pulls out that green color cast of those pixels on the fringe. So it cleans up your selection a little bit. All right, then how do we want to output this? That's the drop-down box. Output to, and if you click on the drop box, you'll see your options. Do you want it to be a new layer with a mask, a new document, or a new document with a mask? The choice that we're going to choose is the one that's checked, new layer with a layer mask. And then we're going to say OK. Now I want you to look at your layer stack back in regular Photoshop view. We still have our background layer. The model layer where she is shot on a white background still exists, but it's turned off. And the new layer that they made with the layer mask is still here. So everything that's black on that image is being blocked out. Everything that's white is showing. The cool thing about leaving it like this is that if you go, you know what, I didn't do a very good job here, you can always go back into the mask and clean it up because it's non-destructive. It's still sitting right there. All right, let's save our work at this point. And we are going to now make a quick mask where we're going to select her glasses and we're going to change the hue of those to make it look like she's wearing green glasses. So the masking that we just did was the regular version. We're going to do a quick mask. Hide the background layer of the magazine. We don't need that right now. Zoom in enough that you can really see her glasses and you'll be able to get some detailed selections here. And then we're going to go down and enter into quick mask mode. And if you ever do this by accident and your screen starts behaving weirdly, now you're going to know what it is and why. The bottom of your toolbar, after the color chips, the next icon says edit in quick mask mode or letter Q. I've had it happen where I've hit the letter Q on my keyboard accidentally and didn't realize what I was doing, but I was in this quick mask mode. So select that. Now as we make a selection, a red overlay is going to appear. And notice in your layers panel, it looks a little different. It's red over here, kind of warning us that we're in this quick mask mode. So we're going to take our brush tool. So right here, letter B is the shortcut that gets you to the brush tool. We're going to check our option bar before we begin. We need to be in a normal blending mode, not something funky. And we're going to change our brush size. If you click on that down arrow next to the brush, we're going to change it to be a 13 pixel brush. Again, we might have to change that when we get in our document. And a hardness of 100%. And we're going to bring our cursor over and we're going to start painting with our quick mask on her glasses frame. And again, every time you let go of your mouse, you start again. So rather than trying to get it perfect in one long drive, let go of your mouse every now and then. Make your brush bigger or smaller as needed, using the right and left bracket keys to make it smaller. Don't worry if you go a little past this. I'll show you about fixing it, so just do the best that you can. So do that, do the all pieces of her glasses that you can see. And for the purpose of this demo, it doesn't have to be perfect, so. So it looks like we are painting with red, but we're not, we're masking. When you get it where it looks pretty good, click on that quick mask button again to go back into standard mode. And you should see that you've painted a selection or marching ants around your glasses at that point. However, if you zoom out, what you've really selected is everything but the glasses. Our marching ants are all the way around the edge and her glasses. So right now, all of this is being selected, not just her glasses. We masked out the opposite part, really. So what we need to do is flip it, get the inverse. So
how did you get out the marching ants?
Go back to your regular editing mode below here in the toolbar at the very bottom. So click on that again to get out of quick mask. Right below your color chips in the toolbar, that first button underneath the chips. Nope, one up. Yep.
Just click it.
Uh-huh. That goes back into regular editing mode. But again, we've selected everything but. Yep. Because is what?
Once you feed down the red of your lens,
You click on the go back to regular mode, which is this quick mask mode. Again, you turn it off. So right underneath your chips, click on that, and that puts just marching ants. But really, like I said, the marching ants are around the whole perimeter and her glasses. We need it to just select her glasses, not everything else. So we're going to go up and we're going to choose Select Inverse. And by doing that, the marching ants go away on the outside, and they truly are only targeting her glasses now. Everything on the inside right here. Okay, with that selected, we're going to go to the bottom of our Layers panel. And keep in mind, we're on the layer that we are right now. We're on this, what's it called? Model copy. I can't even tell what that says. We're on this layer, and we've selected those pixels that are underneath or inside of our marching ants. From there, we're going to go down to, the yin and the yang button, the white make adjustment layer button. And we're going to choose Hue Saturation. And that's going to make a new adjustment layer above it, and notice what it did. It masked out everything but her glasses. You can hardly see the little white part right there. So because we had our marching ants first, and we went and made an adjustment layer, it knew that the adjustment layer was only meant to target whatever was inside the marching ants, and it automatically built that mask for us on a hue adjustment, or a hue saturation layer. Now we can change the hue of just what's inside the white part of that mask. We're going to change it to plus 70. Whatever, we're going to give her green glasses is the bottom line. So this layer, we don't even need to clip it to the one below, because it's masked out of everything except for her glasses. That's the only thing it's affecting, right? Can you see that from the layer mask? Let me try something. If you hold down Option and you click on the layer mask itself, the thumbnail, you actually see it up close and perfect. So Option, clicking on that mask, shows you a close-up of just that mask. If we didn't want that done, if we didn't want the glasses change color, all we have to do is turn off the visibility of that adjustment layer, and they're back to being brown glasses. Okay? If your mask isn't great and you want to clean it up, on the adjustment layer that is the mask of the glasses. You can option click on the thumbnail to get it to be this. And remember, with your paintbrush, wherever you paint with white, you show things. So watch what I'm doing. This is going to be bad, but just watch. I painted with white to show things. That's now what I see. I paint with black. I change black to be my foreground color. I make my brush a lot bigger, and I get rid of all this nonsense that I just did. I say, no, I don't want to see I don't want anything to be targeted with that adjustment layer except for what's white. So if I need to go in and clean up this mask, I either paint with white to clean it up. Maybe I have like not a perfectly straight line, so I can paint with white to fix my mask, or paint with black to fix it the other way to hide things. Okay, but you have to do that on the masking layer itself. And then Alt. You don't need to be in that view that I was just in. Let me show you how that works. I'm still on this hue saturation adjustment layer, but if I want to clean up that mask, all I do is paint with black or white. If I'm painting with white, it's making a hole in my mask that I didn't want. If I paint with black, it's hiding things. So if I did that, it's not letting that hue saturation mask affect it right there. So you don't have to be in that black and white view. I find it's helpful to see what it really looks like up close, but this works a lot better when you can actually see what's underneath. So like right here, my mask got a little carried away. I don't necessarily want that green tint on her skin right here, so I can paint with black to hide it, or paint with white to show my mask better in some places. So on an adjustment layer like this one, it's super easy. That's the only thing you're targeting. I want everybody to go down to the layer below it, which is the girl again. Click on that layer to highlight it. Notice that the image is a thumbnail, and attached to that is a mask. So there's two different things here. The one that's actively targeted has a white box around it. So right now, her picture is the active part. If I were to go and paint black and white on that, I would literally be painting black and white on her, and I'll show you that. Oops, not what I meant to do. To affect the mask, you have to click on the mask itself, get the white box around that, and now you can paint on the mask to get it to do things. Okay, so now I'm affecting the mask, not her. I'm doing a terrible job here. I'm getting that white background again, but I'm affecting the mask. So painting with white to show or black to hide on your mask does things like this. All right. So she has green glasses. Let's do a file save. And then zoom out so that we can see her whole image. And we're going to do puppet warp, which we did in Illustrator last week. Don't we take the guy on the flagpole and make him be flying all around by putting puppet pins in him? Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, you can do that in Photoshop, which blows my mind. Vectors I get. We can stretch out the dot to dot and make it work. Photoshop, we can do this also. We can put in pins and then pivot. And obviously it has to think and guess. So if we were to like tip her head 90 degrees backwards, it'd be horrible. But I mean, Photoshop would have to fake a lot of stuff to figure out like, how are we going to make her neck do a 90-degree angle? But it could. So we're just going to take this. I'll go back to Bridge real quickly and show you the finished product. We actually have her looking up compared to how she is right now, but we have her shadow going straight forward. So we are going to do a little puppet warping with her. All right. Model copy layer. Let's make sure we're on that one and make sure we're on the actual picture, not the layer mask that we've been tweaking. So the little white box is around the thumbnail of the picture. And we're going to do Edit from our drop-down menu, Puppet Warp. Very similar to Illustrator. It puts this mesh on, and we can start seeing where we want to add pins. So our goal is going to be to keep all of this part about her where it is, but only tweak like, the top of her head. We're gonna want her neck to stay where it is. So we're gonna start clicking with this tool to put down pins, and we're gonna anchor. So we're gonna start at her bottom left down here of her chest, and we're gonna click to put a pin there. And then we're just gonna go and add some pins as we go up the front, and we're gonna get about to right here of her, right when her skin starts on her neck and it's not so much hair or shadow. That'll be our last one there. And then we're going to follow the contour of her head kind of going up on her neck. And then we're going to come to this back side at like the base of her head and put in a clip, a pin. And then we're going to go down her back to make sure that that all stays where it needs to stay. So make a bunch of pins and kind of lock her down the way we see. So the pin that we're going to be tweaking around is this back one at the nape of her neck, the last one the one that we put in right here. We want to hold down Option and click on that pin. Well, first we want to select the pin, sorry. Click once to select it, you're going to get the blue dot. Then we're going to hold down Option, and we're going to move our cursor slightly away, and we're going to get that circle and the double arrows. We're going to start rotating, and we're going to rotate. Anybody see a problem? I see a problem. We'll deal with that in a minute. Actually, let's just stop. Do you guys see the problem that I'm having? What's not rotating with it? The hue layer that we did above it, right? All right, let's undo, Command Z. And before I move on, I want to clip that hue saturation layer to the layer that we're on right now. So hold down the Option key, and when you're in between those two layers, click. Oh shoot, I'm in Puppet Warp. It's not going to let me. All right, I must have missed a step. I believe that selection was meant to be part of the mask that we had going already. Shoot, we can't get out of this. All right, we're just going to let it be wrong. Her green glasses are not going to go with her. However, what we should have done before we got to this point was we should have clipped this to the layer below it so that the green glasses moved with her, or we should have flattened that one layer down a layer onto this one. So that green mask was part of the overall mask that we're working on right now, that layer. And then her glasses would have gone with her. But I screwed up, so we're not going to. So again, go back to that pinpoint, hold Option, and when you get the double arrow, start twisting until you get to 170 degrees. Lovely. And then accept your change. So click on the accept button or hit enter or return. Since I didn't get my green glasses to go along, I'm just going to turn off that layer. She's not going to have green glasses for the purpose of this, I guess. But she is definitely looking up from where she was. I'm just activating the layer below. That's where she was. We made her look up quite a bit. Photoshop did a good job with it. Okay, so that is a layer. In the Layers panel, you have a tab for two other things. You have Channels and Paths. If you switch to Channels, you can see that this is an RGB document, red, green, blue. So there's a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel, and then they're showing you the composite RGB channel right here with all the colors. Another version of a channel that we can make is called an alpha channel. It doesn't print, doesn't do anything. All it is once you've made a selection, so once we've outlined this girl and we have it perfect, by making that an alpha selection, we can always get to it, and it goes with the file. So if you save this and 3 years down the road you open it up and you want to change something, that alpha channel is still there, and when you click on it, it'll put the marching ants around the girl perfectly exactly as your mask was. So it's stored with it and it goes with the file. All right. Go back to your layers panel. So we've already made, I'm a little worried about this. It's behaving a little differently than I'm expecting. The model copy layer, we're going to command click on the layer thumbnail itself. So hold down command and click on the thumbnail. That's going to put our marching ants around the girl again. So that's going to load our selection. We now want to save that permanently as this alpha channel. So we're going to do, up in our drop-down menu, we're going to choose select, and then we're going to do save selection. There it is towards the bottom. Save the selection. All right, what pops up is a little floating window, and it's saying, okay, so in this document called Brenda Girl PSD, you want to make a new channel, and what do you want to name it? We're going to call this model outline, and then say okay. Nothing looks different, nothing's changed, but go back to your channels, and I want you to look at the new alpha channel that's been added called model outline. It's basically your mask. It exists there, and you can always, there's stuff you can do with it. So an alpha selection, or an alpha channel rather, is just a save selection. Okay, go back to your layers panel. We have our marching ants around the girl yet, right? That selection is still selected. We're going to click on the create a new layer button at the bottom right, and that's going to create something called layer 1. We're going to drag it below the model copy. So we want this one stacked underneath her. We're going to rename layer 1 shadow. And now we're going to do that select and mask again. So we need to go up to our select drop-down menu and choose select and mask. It's going to bring up this properties panel on the far right again. In our view mode, we want to view it on black. The shift edge slider, click on that view again to get that to collapse. Down here, the shift edge slider that's currently at 0, we want to switch that to plus 36. And then in the output settings down here, how are we going to output this? We want to make sure that it's going to output to a selection and then say okay. We now have our marching ants going on the layer called shadow. We can see them around where the girl is. And we're going to fill the marching ants with a color. So we're going to do edit, fill, and our choices are foreground, background, a color, content aware, black, whatever. We're going to choose black from how we want to fill this. And we're going to say okay. So there is a slightly larger, because we made our edges go 36% bigger, so there's a slightly larger black silhouette underneath there. It's pretty dramatic. It's not the best shadow probably. We're going to reduce the opacity of this layer because it's a bit dramatic. So with that layer selected, we're going to come to our opacity slider and we're going to take it down to 30%. So it looks more like a shadow and not something creepy back there. Deselect your marching ants, so Command D, that got rid of them. With that layer still active, with our shadow layer still active, we're going to choose from our Edit drop-down menu. We're going to go into Transform, and we're going to choose Rotate. We can either do this by hand, or we can type it in the Rotate field up in the option bar. So in your option bar, after width and height, you see an angle that's at 0%. If you want to put in an exact number, right up here you can type in 15. And then we want to move the shadow over. And we can do it by sight. We have to move it down and over. I think I was supposed to do -15. No wonder this looks goofy. Let's try that again. -15 degrees. There we go. And then move the shadow so that it's more like how she was looking originally. You can position it. And then click on the check mark, the OK box, to accept that. And if your shadow isn't where you want it, you can go ahead and take the Move tool and continue to move that shadow around. And there we have done some serious masking. We've done a refine edge so that we can see hair coming through it. We masked out just her glasses and applied a hue saturation layer to that. So she should have green glasses on, had we done that right. And then we did the puppet warp and made her look a different way. We're going to do a couple examples. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to do one other example after our break using some pictures from our last book. But in the last book, we took a picture of an elephant that was on a flat background layer, and we actually selected the elephant off of it, and then we covered up the background layer to look all like normal backgrounds, so the elephant was gone. And then we put pins in, and we were able to make our elephant, walk, kneel. We had his trunk coming up. It was really quite cool. The other thing that's important is that the order that you put the pins in is their stacking order. So the tail of the elephant, we swung it behind the elephant, and then we switched the stacking order and we swung it in front of the elephant. So it's insane what you can do with photos, I think. I never expected that to be a thing. Puppet work in Photoshop didn't seem like a thing. All right, let's save your file, and we're done with that one, and hopefully you feel